Tech by Tips.
Welcome to another Tech by Tips video. In today's video we're talking about the application named PiHole. You have probably heard of it, and if you have not, you don't know what you've been missing. But thank God I'm here to give you the information about this application because it's really useful and I believe that you should be using it. If you want to get more information about it, you can go into github.com/PiHole/PiHole and you'll see this page that talks about the application. It has 220 contributors. It's written in Python and Shell, and it's open source. It's a blocking device basically. It's an application that you can install in a container or in a Raspberry Pi or a computer or a virtual machine, and its job is to be a DNS server for you, but a very specific DNS that is capable of ignoring the ad domains. So that's why they call it a DNS sinkhole, because whenever you request the domain information for an ad, it just tells you don't load that, and the ads don't load on your websites. So yes, it's a very good application. It's very useful. I've used it for many years already. I've even contributed to them because I think their work is really good, and it has instructions on how to do the installation, and it has documentation and all that stuff. It's really good, so I recommend you go to the website, and I'm gonna show you exactly what this application does. So let's go into this beautiful website called canyoublockit.com, and in here, if I refresh this page, currently you'll see I get an interstitial ad, which is those ads that come up for a short amount of time before the content is actually displayed, and then when the page actually loads, you see a bunch of Google ads, for example, here. So as you can see, our ads are not being blocked currently. Why is that? Because I purposefully used the DNS server from Google so that I could show you this. So you can see I was using 8.8.8.8. So let's switch back into our PiHole. In my case, the PiHole is my network-wide DNS server. So I don't have to configure my machine to use the PiHole. Immediately after any device connects to my router in my home, all the traffic goes to the PiHole and all the ads are blocked in all the devices that are in my network. So if I refresh this page now, there we go. So the interstitial ad is not loading. Even though I get the timer, I don't see the content of the ad in this case. And then when the website loads, as you can see, all of the ads are blocked. Wherever we were supposed to see an ad, you see that it just has this thing that says advertisement, advertisement, advertisement. So there's no ad in here. And that's really good because it helps you to block all of those ads. I mean, you can go do the extreme test here and it's really, really good. It blocks most of it. So I would say use it. It's definitely a really good application. Okay, now that we have discussed a little bit about PiHole, let's cover how this actually works. What's the technical view behind all of this, right? So PiHole works by blocking DNS requests to ad sites. And first of all, if you don't know how a DNS request flows, let's go over that so you can see. In here, the bottom part of the screen represents your home network, and the upper part means basically the open internet. So the first thing is your computer. When you're loading a website, or when you look in your browser for a website to load, like when you type Microsoft.com or Google.com or something like that, the first thing it does, it communicates with your router, and it asks your router, what is the IP of, in this example, Microsoft.com? And the next thing is that your router will go out and prompt your primary DNS server for that resolution. Normally that's done with your ISP. So for example, if you have Comcast, your router is going to query Comcast DNS servers. If you have Verizon, your router is going to query Verizon servers. And if you manually specified one, for example, a lot of gamers use Google as their DNS server. So if that's the case, for example, if your default DNS server is Google, then your router is going to say, okay, I don't know, let me ask Google's DNS server so that they can tell me what that is, right? And then that request goes to the Google servers where it's saying, hey, can you please let me know what's the IP of Microsoft.com? And then the Google DNS server replies back saying, sure, bro, Microsoft's IP address is 20.236.44.162, for example. By the way, let me save this information about your requests and make money by tracking you and selling it. So that's a very important thing. Your requests to your ISP's DNS or Google's DNS or any of those DNSs is tracked, and they can sell that information to make money. So that request comes back to your router with the answer, and then your router sends that reply to your computer that says, okay, the IP that you're looking for is this one, and your computer can go into that IP to load all the things that is necessary to load the website Microsoft.com. Now, it works the same for ads. So for example, the main ad provider is Google AdSense. So whenever there's a space in a website that is supposed to show you like a square with an ad or a banner with an ad or something like that, most likely comes from the Google servers, because AdSense is serviced by Google. So whenever you load a page and it has an ad, it follows the same process, but it's just gonna say what's the IP for this specific ad, because each ad has a domain that it has to get all the information from, right? So it follows the same process. Your router goes to the internet, reaches out to Google if that's your DNS provider, and then it tells you, okay, this is the IP that you need to load that ad. And it goes back into your network, and then the router gives it back to the PC, which then knows how to get that ad information. So how does PiHole block our ads? It disrupts that flow because it has a list of all the domains that are for ads. So whenever your computer places a request, if your router uses a PiHole as your DNS server, then instead of going out into the open internet, it'll just send that request locally to your PiHole and say, hey PiHole, I don't know, can you tell me the IP address for this domain? And then PiHole checks its lists, and if it has the domain in a blacklist, so saying this is an ad domain and I don't want to give you that information so that you don't load the ad, then it's going to tell you, hey dude, that's an ad, don't load that, okay? And then your router will reply back to your computer saying, hey, that's an ad, don't load that. So on that website, it basically ignores all the content that is related to the ad because it cannot retrieve the information to display that ad to you. So that's the magic behind AdBlock. That's how it works. Let's go into our NAS and go into our registry and look for PiHole. And the first thing is the official image, so we're going to use that one. We double click there, we select the latest and wait for it to download. And it has downloaded, as we can see here. So we can clear that notification, and when we go into images, we should see an image that says PiHole latest. So we can double click this to start creating a container. We go next and we rename this PiHole, and we enable auto restart. We don't need to enable privileges. We can enable resource limitation if we want, so that it doesn't take a crazy amount of memory at the worst case scenario. And now we go into the advanced settings, and in the advanced settings we have to, as usual, put a few variables here. The first one that we need to put in here is the time zone, as usual, and in my case I put America, New York. Then the next one that we need is the process user ID, which by default for your administrator account that you first create when you set up your Synology NAS is 1026, and the process group ID, which usually for that same account is 100. I set up a video where I explain how to get that to make sure if you're not using the admin account, if you have another one. And yeah, that's how you do that. And then we need to create another variable here that is the web password. And this is going to be the password that we type to get into the PiHole user interface. So we're going to save this, and we're going to go next here, and then we see that there's a bunch of different ports that it expects to use. 53 is the DNS port, so we're gonna leave that open, but the 67 I'm not gonna use, honestly. Oh, I deleted the wrong one. Great. So let's put 53 TCP. There you go, 53. And then port 80, we're gonna make 8079 because in our series we've used a bunch of them from 8080 all the way up. So 8079 is open. This is the port that we're gonna use to reach the PiHole user interface. And then after that we're gonna go next, and now we need to mount some folders, right? In here I'm going to go into Docker configs, and I don't have one for PiHole, so I'm going to create one here for PiHole. And once I create that, inside that folder I need to create others, because PiHole doesn't follow the same norm as the other applications that I was setting up that has a /config folder. So we're gonna have to create another one folder that is PiHole, and another folder for DNS mask daemon. Those, oh dear God, I put it in the wrong place. Alright, let's fix that real quickly. We go into Docker configs, PiHole, and then this one we cut it out of here, we put it back here, so we should have two folders inside PiHole. Now it makes sense. So first I'm going to select the base folder, which is the one that says PiHole, and that's going to be our config folder. And then I'm going to add inside that one the PiHole folder, and inside that one also the DNS mask folder, because this is gonna map to the etc PiHole inside the container and the DNS mask D inside the container. So that's how we back up the configuration of our PiHole. So now we can go and click next, and then we validate that everything is correct, and then we click done, and that should initiate our container. So we're gonna go into the containers and wait until PiHole is up. We're gonna go into the logs here, we're gonna monitor it and make sure that it loads. As you can see, it's using Google as default, and it looks like it's ready. Well, not yet, it's almost there. Okay, it's not updating anymore, so it should be ready now. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into the IP of our NAS, but we're gonna put the port 8079, and if you get this forbidden, it's okay, you need to put /admin at the end, and then you get the PiHole user interface. And in here we're gonna put the password that we set up in the environment variable, which in my case was password, and then we click login. And this is the user interface for PiHole. And that basically tells us that the PiHole is already active and listening and working, right? So in my case, there's a few things that I recommend that you do to get PiHole working properly. So let's go over those real quickly. The first thing is when we go into the add lists, by default it comes with this add list here, but we can add others. So one good add list that is used frequently by a lot of people is the easy list that is used by like AdBlock Plus. So we can add that in there so that we can also use that to block our ads. So for example, you will go here, you would put that there and put easy list, and that tells you that that's a new ad list that we are gonna use to block the ads. And then once you can add more, you can do a quick Google search for ad lists, and you will get a bunch of lists of different people that have compiled lists. So you can, search for that and then add whatever you want here, because there's many different ones. You have lists for ads, you have lists for domains that track you, you have lists for suspicious websites, you have lists for malware and stuff like that. So you can put as many as you want here. I think this is good enough to block the ads. So once you have that, you can come here into the tools, and then you go where it says upgrade gravity. And first of all, let's see how many ads. It says we are blocking 146,696 domains in our list. So let's update and see if that goes up a little bit. So 146,000. So we go here and click update. We wait for it to pull the list of domains to block from those two lists that we have, and then we go back into the dashboard. And as you can see now, we are blocking more ads. Basically like almost 40,000 more domains of ads. So that's the first thing I would honestly do once you have PiHole running. The other thing that I think is really important to do is, if you go into the domains here, you can whitelist domains. Sometimes there are some domains that are necessary for your computer to function properly, for example, or if you are a player, like a gamer. Sometimes it blocks the Xbox domains, and I would recommend that you put all of these domains that I'm gonna put in here in your whitelist, so they're not blocked and your Xbox functions properly. So let's get to that. And first thing I would do is xboxlive.com. I would say this is for Xbox, and I would say add to whitelist, and as you can see, it puts it on a whitelist. Oh, but interesting. I specified only Xbox Live, so I should have done that differently, right? So let's delete that and then put xboxlive.com, but then let's check this box that says add it as a wildcard. So when we do that, anything before xboxlive.com is also included. So that's the best way to do that, right? I just wanted you to be aware of that. That was done on purpose. Now we have like Windows Update that is also usually blocked. So we want to make sure that that is not blocked. So I would put Control-DL windowsupdate.com and then add it to the whitelist. And again, we have another Microsoft service that is related to communication and other Microsoft services that I would put, which is www.msft, that's Microsoft, ncsi.com, and I would mark that as a wildcard also and add it to the whitelist. So we have that also in there, and then we have a few more that are related to Xbox. So let's do that here. We have xbox.ipv6.microsoft.com, and we add that. Then again for Xbox, we have v10.events.data.microsoft.com. Let me copy that because there's another similar to this one, but it's v20. So there we go for Xbox again, and then we add that. And for Xbox again, we have vortex.data.microsoft.com, and we add that. And then another one that is related to the Xbox messaging features, we want that to work, so we put client.s.gateway.messenger.live.com, and that also allows us to use that. So those are the main domains that so far I've found that I need for my Xbox and Microsoft services to not be blocked and work perfectly when I'm using PiHole. So I'm giving it to you so you don't have to go through that trouble of figuring out why my Xbox is not working properly. So there, now that's included in there, and then we have our PiHole basically ready to go. But the thing is, at this point you can see that there's no queries here. So that means that even though the PiHole is there and it's listening and it's working, it's not being used. So there's two ways that you can do this. I'm gonna show you the first one here, which is the annoying one that I don't like to set up, but it gives you one benefit, right? So let's go here into the network and internet settings. I'm gonna go into the adapter options. I'm gonna go into Ethernet, and I'm going to say that I want for IP version 4 my DNS to be the IP of my PiHole, which is the IP of my NAS at this moment. So I would put the IP of the NAS, okay, close, and now you can see that the requests from my computer are coming in. So you can see it's live. Whenever a request comes in, it's going to do that. Let's try to go into that website where we block the ads and see if we can see things being blocked here in our PiHole. So you can see it blocked things, and if we go to the dashboard, boom, here we go. We have good information. Tells us that we've played 100 queries, 20 of them have been blocked, basically almost 20% of it. So a lot of ads, as you can see. And here's the important thing. Since I put the IP of my PiHole directly in my device, when I go into the details here, I can see that my device is submitting requests to the PiHole. When I see the top clients, it should have the IP of the clients, right? If you're running in Docker, it'll most likely show you 172.17.01 or something similar, because the requests are coming in through your NAS, and then the NAS is querying basically the PiHole. But if you're running it like in a Raspberry Pi or a VM or some other device per se, then you'll probably see more information here about the devices that have been requesting. I usually don't do that. I don't even go this route. I go by making it my default DNS server in my home. So how do I do that? Let's first remove this because I don't need this in my computer. Like I said, it should be my default. So obtain from the router automatically. Okay. Now, in order for the PiHole to become the default DNS server of our network, we need to set that up in our router. So how do I do that? Let's go into the router here. So I have Verizon, so when I go into my router, first I click where it says my network and then network connections, and then in here I click where it says edit broadband connection, and in here you would see the DNS address. In my case, I'm using IPv4, so that's what you see here. If you're using IPv6, you would also see that there. So then we go into settings, and in here is where I set up the IPv4 DNS address. So then I'm specifying the IP of my NAS so that all the requests that come to my router go directly to my PiHole. So that's how you set it up. Then you apply, and that saves that, and then all the requests from all the devices in your home will come to your PiHole. So that's how you set it up. And I hope you like this video. Remember, if you find it useful, like, subscribe to the channel, share the videos. If you like the content that I'm making and you want to support me, remember there are links in the description below so you can donate through PayPal or via Bitcoin, as I am not monetizing this channel and you should not see any ads on any of my videos. So thank you very much for being here with me, and I'll see you on the next one.